The Albany Selectmen's meeting of July 27th to order at 5:30 PM. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. New business. Approve of the July 13th, 2022 Selectmen meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve minutes.
I'll second it.
Listen when you get this.
Any comments, I don't have anything
No.
to add. Call it to an order, actually call it to a vote.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approval of the July 27, 2022 consent file, which consists of review and sign manifests in the amount of $7,266.95 and $5,339.03 to include payroll and accounts payable for 7/20 and 7/27. Review, discuss, and approve or deny an application for local approval for construction of an individual sewage disposal system for map 7 lot 30 on Tabor Circle. And review, discuss, and approve or deny a residential building permit application for map 7 lot 30 on Tabor Circle.
I make a motion to approve the consent file for July 27th.
I'll second. Any discussion?
No.
Call to vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Review and discuss letter from Caleb Kennedy regarding violation 2287 camping and fires in prohibited area.
So I didn't have this until 4 o'clock today, so I just gave you a hard copy of Deputy Rowe's email regarding it. In this case, as in with the other one you'll consider tonight, Mr. Kennedy was camping in the town forest parking lot. He says it's unjustified because it's not camping, but he was sleeping overnight and intended to sleep overnight. At first he said he did, I called him and talked to him as well. At first he said he didn't see the sign, and then he admitted he saw the sign, but thought I'd only referred to the forest, not the parking lot. And when he said it was unjustified because he should have gotten a warning. I don't believe it was Deputy Rowe that gave out this ticket. I think it was Brittany. Oh, no, it was Deputy Rowe. He said he did give him a warning by not writing the girlfriend as well. You know, sometimes if people are rude or belligerent, he writes everybody for, and he can write everybody. And with the next one, it was the husband, wife, and daughter. So they could have gotten $750 and they got one $250. So,
So they're aware of that. They know that each person,
yes,
individual,
because
can get
I
fined.
spoke
Okay.
to, yes, definitely. I don't know if they knew it at the time. Generally, Deputy Rowe tells them that. You know, there was an instance, I think, 4th of July weekend or the following weekend where there were 8 people camping, drinking underage. So they wrote the 3 underage for alcohol because they have to. They wrote 3 of them for camping, and then they wrote 2 for marijuana. Like they don't try to pile everybody on for every charge they did, but they want to make sure they understand you can't do this. It's not safe. It's not allowed. Don't do it again. So it hasn't been my experience in the 2.5 years I've been here that these are unfair. I mean, and we have a lot less of it now than we did during COVID. And I think I said this before that the year before I came here, we had $2,700 in revenue from parking tickets. During COVID, we had $15,000. And now we're down to about 3 or 4. And I think I budgeted 6. So there's a lot less of it now, but it's not safe to have forest fires and drink alcohol and stay overnight in places you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
I will make a motion to deny Caleb Kennedy's appeal for his ticket for camping.
Second.
Any discussion?
I agree. We don't pay the sheriff's department to give out warnings. When it's necessary, they give out tickets. And this person, they were sleeping in the back of the truck. It's not like they just put their head down to take a nap.
Exactly.
They wouldn't go into bed for the night. So they were camping.
Yeah, and also just to clarify to Caleb that it's possible to get tickets to each individual person. So it's actually, a deal, I guess you could say. It's not the worst that could have happened.
It was fair.
It was fair, right?
I believe he wanted us to, because he's gonna move forward further with this, I believe. Is he gonna go to Carroll County?
He can't, they refer him to us.
So if we say no, then it doesn't go any further.
That's right.
It can go to court. I mean,
Yeah.
he can
still
take
go.
it to the judge.
Sure.
He can
If
not
he wants
pay it
to.
and,
So we're not the final say anyway. We would help.
Most of the time, I mean.
we're the final say on waiving it.
Yeah.
I guess the judge could throw it out of court, but I don't see that happening if
No,
it's a legitimate
Yeah.
violation,
Yeah.
so,
And the deputy will stand up for
yes.
his word and.
And there's also a letter, the next one was, a different person.
Different
but
violation.
There's
Can we
also
finish that one?
a letter from,
Any further discussion?
No.
We'll call to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Should we discuss the second one now? Okay. Do you want to explain the situation?
so this one was a little bit different. It was a family in a Mercedes Sprinter van, which is set up for camping. And he says he does this all the time. He pulls off, and he said, and the officers asked him if they saw the sign that said no camping within a quarter mile. And he said, yes, I've seen it before, but we live in Maine. We drive over here. We spend the night. We pull off and spend the night somewhere, and then we bike on the Kank. So
Why can't you pull off into a campground?
I don't know. But he also complained that the officer kept his hand on his gun. And
Yeah.
I understand that if somebody wakes you up at 1:30 in the morning, you're not in the best of moods. But
Yeah.
again, and that one, he was with the forest ranger. And the forest ranger had a whole conversation with him that he didn't share with Steve Rowe about him knowing that he knows he can't camp within a quarter mile, but he does it all the time
Yeah.
because he comes over late at night from Maine and then spends the night and then gets up first thing in the morning and goes biking.
And again, he had his
Wife and daughter who all could have
which,
gotten.
right. Yeah, so it's really important that people know that too, because I hate having people getting fined, and in this time it's very tough. I mean, we're all struggling to pay, for our bills and all that stuff, but it is what it is. I mean,
If it was allowed, then everyone would be doing it.
right.
Sure.
And
And
keep
yeah,
going
And there'd be
down.
trash everywhere.
And like you said, that
People
could be
know.
for each person in the vehicle. So it is what it is.
I also think it's a cautionary tale because if he's been doing it right along, he did it because he got away with it.
right.
And so, and then pretty soon I see your Sprinter van there, and then I decide that, he can do it.
Right.
It's just a slippery slope. We
And
don't.
I think maybe we should consider changing the policy as well before we consider any appeal. Their fine payment is included, and that way there's not a chance that we have to go chasing them for this fine, for the payment of this fine. Because if we deny this, and they don't pay it, then we have to go through the court process.
Well, the difference is for us is that we don't have our own police department, so we don't ever have to chase it. Steve Rowe chases them, and he's very successful. And because if they're in state and they don't show up, they don't pay the ticket, and they don't go to court, then it affects their ability to register a car here.
Mhm.
There's consequences, and even in a state that's reciprocal, they can. I think Massachusetts and Connecticut are like reciprocal. There's some states where there's nothing we could do,
Right.
but we don't get very many of them.
Right.
So I don't have any issue with that. I just think that it creates more work for me, honestly, if I have to refund one on the odd chance that you waive it,
Yeah.
than there is for me to ever have to chase the fine down, because again, Deputy Rowe is on these, and he knows,
He
like
gets
if
it.
it's, and if it's local people, he knows
Yeah.
their circumstances and stays on top of them even more, and shares that information with us so that I can share it with you. So
Yeah.
it's up to you guys. I mean, if you want me to write some
It's
kind of
just an idea.
policy, I could write a policy, but
It's just an idea.
so far this works pretty good. And like I said,
I'd like to see what happens with this.
these two.
I make a motion to deny the,
The appeal.
the appeal for violation 2290 for Mr. Martel.
I will second that. Discussion? Call to a vote, all in favor? Aye.
Do you take these and shred them? I mean, I don't need it.
Yeah, I can show you.
Okay.
Town administrators report.
Oh, let's see. So I took the liberty of drafting a letter for you to send to the owner of 2642 New Hampshire Route 16. This is a situation where a gentleman came in, explained that he was a Delta pilot and wanted to do a non-residential registration for a very large RV. And so Sandy was asking me about, the non-residential stuff. And I said, did you share with him our zoning regulation that you can only stay in an RV? Because I guess the idea, and I think I found this out after the fact, was that he's a pilot for Delta and he's going to lease some land here to put his RV on for him and his 4 kids because they couldn't find a place to rent. So I gave Sandy and Caitlin a copy of our zoning ordinance that says you can only stay in an RV, live or use an RV for 60 consecutive or 60 cumulative days in a calendar year. And, I explained to her, that's 30 weekends, it's 60 days, it's for the whole calendar year. And so she shared that with him, but he's not actually the owner of the property. So then the next time he came in with the appropriate documents to register it, they asked him where it was, and it's 26. He said it was 2642 New Hampshire Route 16. So then I was able to look up the property, and there's a house on that. So it appears, allegedly, that the owner of 2642 is leasing a parking spot to this gentleman. And again, it's the owner's responsibility to understand what our zoning requirements are. I don't know if it's just for the summer and it will be 60 or less cumulative days. But there's also a requirement in our zoning ordinance that requires that they affirm that they are using the septic system that comes with the RV, because I think that's important that we not wind up with septage in places it doesn't belong. So this letter just says it's been brought to our attention. Can you let us know about this? And
I would also refer Sandy to the non-resident law, because I don't believe he can even register as a non-resident.
I think he did, but I will have her do some
It's
research.
right on the non-resident form, and it may have been updated, of course, so she should look online.
I don't think that house is inhabited, right?
It doesn't look.
I know it wasn't when they were selling it, but I don't know if it
There's a lot of problems with it.
I kind of thought it was because his mailing address is the property. It's not getting sent out of state or, so, I
I
mean,
never see any action there.
No, when I go by, it looks uninhabited.
You might be having the mail delivered there, and just whenever he comes up, he's grabbing mail.
it was occupied in 2020, according to our assessor. And in 2021, there was new windows and some interior work done, so.
Maybe it's fixing it.
Okay.
Trying.
Either way.
But we should get a better idea once we send it out. Yep. And then, so I had one other thing that came up at the end of the day. We got some revenue sharing information from NHMA. So apparently there was such a leftover amount of money in the state coffers that they decided to give a one-time, what do they call it? A one-time property tax relief through direct payments to cities and towns. So they are increasing our highway block grant by $32,902, which is almost what we get. It's almost doubling that. And then in addition to that, there is a Senate bill that made a municipally owned bridge allocation. And we are on that list for $45,441. I just have to see if we can put that in like our Drake Hill
Probably
Bridge
not,
capital
but,
reserve fund. But if not, maybe there's something that Curtis could do
maybe something on past comment.
designing.
Yeah.
Well, that one has to be for bridge.
Right.
So
There's something out there, isn't there?
There's
the
5
bridge by
bridges.
Johnny's house.
we have 5 municipally owned bridges. So if it's okay with you guys, I just got this at end of day, so I will share it with Curtis and see what, because it's probably, he could do a little more paving with the 32,000 as well.
Old Drake Hill Road.
Pay for those speed limit signs.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Appointments, meet with Chief Solomon of Conway Village Fire Department.
Hey, that's me.
Hey.
So it's kind of that time of year to start talking about where we're going forward with the contract, and we are a little behind on that, so I don't have numbers to throw at you yet. I did provide some kind of data and talking points. Did you guys get that? Yes, I have copies if you need it. And so I thought maybe it'd be a good time to just kind of answer any questions you guys have about where the fire department is, where it's going, what's going on between the village district and the town of Conway, any of those things.
All of the above.
So I will do my best to answer those questions, although some of them are quite nebulous still. So what I can tell you about the potential of dissolving Conway Village is that it started out as we had a conversation, or the commissioners had a conversation with the Board of Selectmen about taking the fire department over. And they and their staff met and came back to the commissioners with kind of a, what do you think about just dissolving the entire village district? We'll take over everything. You save the most money that way. And so there's now a back and forth going on between the Board of Selectmen and the commissioners, as well as, we've spoken with the North Conway Water Precinct about the sewer, and lawyer about some language that's involved and things like that to try to determine if it's in the best interest of the Conway Village Fire District residents for the district to dissolve or to try to turn over to the fire department. Those are kind of two totally different animals from a legal standpoint. Dissolving the village district requires those present voting at an annual meeting to say aye, and it's dissolved. And obviously we word the warrant article in such a way that it's not that day, it's
Right.
halfway through the year, the end of the calendar year, or whatever. But it's relatively simple, and there's a statute that governs what happens at that point, which would become the town of Conway's animal at that point. The selectmen in Conway have the authority to take the fire department if the village district voters vote to turn it over to them and remove it from the village district charter. There's some sticky points there because, statutorily speaking, they're only required to provide fire suppression services, not necessarily ambulance and all of the other things we do. So there's still discussion about that, and I don't know what direction that's really going to go in. We do have another informational meeting August 18th at the fire station that's open to the public for the commissioners to provide additional information that we've obtained and kind of get questions from the public about the process, what's going on, so that we can hopefully come up with a decision on whether or not they're going to put a warrant for next year's annual meeting. So that's kind of what that
So if they
was.
dissolve, they still have to abide by the charter?
No, if the village district dissolves, the charter goes away.
But isn't there a answering piece to that the town has to vote to take it?
Because I remember when East Derry went away, the village precinct had to vote to dissolve and the town of Derry had to vote to take them. And they had to be separate. And I don't know if that was just in their articles of incorporation or if
My
that's.
guess is that has more to do with the makeup of East Derry and the fact that you had multiple unions involved and all of that type of stuff. Because the statute, it's RSA 52 that governs village districts. The statute literally says that the town just takes over the responsibilities and goes on a little further to say things like any debt that the village district holds when they dissolve has to remain within the boundaries of what the village district once was and paid by them. In the case of Conway Village, that's pretty simple because that's water and sewer and it's all paid on the user rates. The fire department's debt free, so there's no debt currently on taxes. So it becomes kind of a non-issue, you know, to do that piece. So there's been some interesting discussion, but it hasn't really moved.
So are there some people that were interested in potentially taking the fire department separately, but now are not as interested in dissolving the whole district? Is that like,
so
there's overlaps of these interest groups?
So in our initial discussions, it appears that to the Conway Village voter and ratepayer, you get the most bang for your buck by dissolving the whole village district. And then a couple of people brought up that under the town of Conway, water and sewer may no longer be eligible for rural development funding. And that there were a couple of issues that they were trying to resolve. One of them is the intermunicipal agreement with North Conway Water Precinct for sewer. But so there were some things that needed to be looked at that way. But you know, taking the village district water and sewer and moving it under public works actually defrays some of the cost of water and sewer across public works, so it reduces those costs. There's also a duplication of equipment between public works and the water and sewer because it's a separate entity that could go away. There's more, pretty much everybody thinks it's time for the town of Conway to operate the fire departments. But in reality, you're talking about the individual fire districts have to vote to do that. And I doubt all 5 will. I think the Conway Village voters would vote to do that. I think the East Conway voters would vote to do that. Redstone maybe, Center Conway's a maybe. I think North Conway's probably a no. They just invested all that money in a brand new fire station. They have a huge tax base. You know, what costs them pennies costs us dollars. So,
Are you concerned that EMS would be the redheaded stepchild too? That it's
well,
kind of left
there is a
out?
concern about that because the Conway Board of Selectmen has never been, never promoted high quality aggressive EMS. Every time they write a contract for ambulance, it's low bid BLS service. And that's not what we provide, you know. We, in discussion, have said nothing changes right off the bat, you know, because that would just be too much change all at once anyway. But we're in a contract with the town for ambulance. Action Ambulance has a contract with the town for the other half of town. We would probably let those time periods run out, and that would give the voters, the Board of Selectmen, the fire department, and all of the players the opportunity to talk about what we provide for service and why it's valuable and why it should be continued versus going with a BLS private for-profit ambulance service, you know. And don't get me wrong, Ashton's doing a much better job than their predecessor or their predecessor before that. So, you know, it's just really when it comes down to it, when you hire a private for-profit ambulance service, the money the town is kicking in is profit being taken away by a company somewhere else. When it's a municipal service, the money you're kicking in is kept in that municipality and goes back towards taking care of the people who are supporting the service. So,
Is there any way that in whatever transition plan happens that Albany could be addressed?
well,
Because obviously one of the concerns would be that this transition happens and for any reason that Conway was not interested in providing the same service to Albany, or Conway decides to go with a third-party ambulance service and they're not interested in Albany, or, you know, is there some way we could address that transition to keep things status quo for us as well and to give us this board time to address it?
yeah, my suggestion was going to be that we write the new contract between Conway Village and the town of Albany, and then date it the same date as the contracts in Conway are going to expire anyway, so that if this goes forward and the Conway Village Fire Department becomes the town of Conway's fire department, we could use that as kind of stepping stones and, a grace period, and we just run that contract through.
Do you know what those time periods are right now?
Well, this is the
We just started.
the first full year of the ambulance contract, so
Is it
it's a
a
5-year
It's
contract.
5 year, 8 months, remember?
Right, because we were making it, and the ambulance contract in Conway always started and ended on April 1st, which made budgeting difficult when everybody budgets on calendar year.
Yes.
So we altered the contract this time to carry that forward so that this contract will end on December 31st,
I think it's 2028.
Right. So I think that would be fair to everyone involved, as well as be a pressure relief valve for having to do a mad scramble of what's going on.
Well, we don't have any reason to think that, Conway already provides solid waste and recreation, but
It's just the formulation's going to change.
yeah.
Right.
And,
but if
and it
we,
gives us some time to address
right.
it.
But if we have a contract, a question we would probably need to inquire from lawyers is whether or not if the village district dissolves, the town is bound by that contract until the end of the date if they're providing that service, because the statute reads that assets and liabilities go from the village district to the town.
And these are both assets and liabilities,
Right.
potentially.
So a contract is often considered an asset. When we run, our auditors always consider our contracts assets. So, but potentially they would be bound by that, but I'm not a lawyer and did not stay at the Holiday Inn Express, so I would refer that up to them. But it should be on the list of questions to ask, I think. So
So when you say that they would be thinking about the cost savings, that would drive them to do this.
there's two things that I look at. First, we have a saying, right? There's the right way, there's the wrong way, and then there's Conway.
Yeah.
Right.
Somewhere.
That's on your desk as a plaque.
Yeah.
Honest Tom's.
So if without spending all night on a history lesson, fire departments in New Hampshire and around New England started predominantly by village districts because the greater municipalities had no interest. So you had dense areas that grew up that needed fire protection coverage. So they formed village district and started them. There are some exceptions, like Berlin Fire started by the fire department started by a paper mill, and then ultimately absorbed by the municipality. So when we hit about the 1940s, most municipalities, town governments, absorbed the village district fire departments. And Tamworth's a great example. That had 4 fire departments at one point, and they were all merged into one and became the town of Tamworth Fire Department in the 1940s. My old stomping grounds down in Hillsborough, it was the Hillsborough Bridge Village Fire District, and it covered the area around the 2 woolen mills in downtown Hillsborough. And then as people moved out of those kind of more concentrated centers into the more rural areas and wanted fire protection coverage, the town took those over. So there's really 3 places in New Hampshire this hasn't happened yet. Ossipee, Conway, and the town of Haverhill over on the Vermont border, which still has 3 village district fire departments within the one town. But the rest of the state has progressed beyond that. And, we have 2 things we look at: economy of scale and personnel. So right now, if we look at the town of Conway as a whole, with 5 fire departments in it, and the massive amount of fire apparatus in 5 separate fire departments, we have more apparatus than the city of Concord has. So we're spending money on things that we don't necessarily need to be spending money on. We could spend it more wisely. I'm not going to promise anybody it would save you $1. I'm just saying we could spend it
That's where I'm
better.
going with this. Cost saving sounds good. Is it gonna?
I never promise
And
anybody.
it's not
that
gonna
we-
be instantaneous.
See, here's one of the problems we keep running into. Just in Conway Village, our call volume keeps going up every year. Our staff, the call staff volunteers, keep going down. We're to the point now, we're barely able to cover our calls because nobody's coming into calls anymore. There's just no call staff left. We have a small group, highly dedicated core people, and we have our full-time staff, and that's it. And there's no tree to shake or rock to turn over to get these people from anymore. People are working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. If they don't have the time to do this, the training takes forever nowadays. It'll take you 6 months to get through a firefighter 1 course. you know? So, and it's not the club, it was even through like the 80s and early 90s. You know, it's a much more professional atmosphere.
It's more like a career now.
And there's a lot more scrutiny, even on call and volunteer firefighters. You know, you do something wrong, you're hung out to dry. You know, so there's just no call and volunteer staff to get, which forces us to continue going back to the voters and saying we need to hire more full-time people again. And we're to that point again. You know, we're doing so many calls and struggling with maintaining that, you know, the ability to respond to all those calls. We need more full-time staff again, and that drives the cost up. So every time we look at ways to save money, we end up absorbing it in payroll, you know. Not to be all doom and gloom, you know, but it is what it is. And unfortunately, we're really to the point, just in Conway Village, let alone the rest of the town of Conway's fire departments, where we're almost at that threshold where we're no longer a call fire department that has some full-time staff. We now operate more like a full-time fire department that has some call staff. You know, it's the duty crew that's handling everything. You know, the ladder truck rolls with the 2 people on duty, the ambulance rolls with 2 people on duty, and
How does your department compare to Conway? How many full-time, and do they have volunteer?
so
Yeah.
they have just the chief and assistant chief are full-time, but they don't do the ambulance.
Right.
So they have no kind of required staffing level. And there's times when they're struggling to get out the door as well. So, and they've now started paying their call members to come stay at the fire station to try to improve their responses. And we see Center Conway, you know, they hired a full-time chief a few years ago, you know, Glenn Merrill, great guy, but he, you know, we'll go out on a call in the middle of the night with Center Conway and it's just him.
Yeah.
You know, Redstone, East Conway and Center Conway are struggling to the point where they're now going on calls together to try to make that, to have enough people to run the call. And that's the boat we're in. We're like, well, let's all get together
Right.
and help each other out.
Exactly.
You know? So, I mean, that's a big driving factor, whether there's cost saving or not, is we all need to help. Let's just work on this. Let's
Well, even if
bite the bullet and work on this.
And even if there's cost savings,
or economy of scale in the beginning, that'll go away in 3
It's not
years
gonna
or
be,
5
right,
years.
it's not gonna be instantaneous.
Right.
So the last time I looked at the numbers, which is, I think, just before COVID, the town of Conway paid about 19% less for health insurance than Conway Village did for the same plan. Because we're in the under 50 pool and they're in the 100 and over pool there. So there's a cost savings.
Should make a consortium.
Workers, we looked at that and we spent a lot of time on that about 10 years ago now, about healthcare and sharing and getting everybody together on one plan with the school district to save the most money. And it was a non-starter. We spent a lot of time working on it. I was like, yep, no. So,
Can always charge on rentals.
Health trust used to allow that if you were on the
yeah,
state
it was
plan.
health trust, yeah.
Then you could put a bunch of under 50 towns together and make 100.
But I look at things like, what about our workers' comp insurance? Would it be cheaper through the town? Probably. You know, so all of those types of things. They're not huge. It's not like we're going to save $500,000 or something. But to me, I'm like, anytime I can save 10 grand, you know, it's a benefit to the taxpayers. So.
But workers' comp is usually a calculation of salary. Like for a clerical position through Primex, you pay 16 cents on every $100 of salary. Firefighters and I believe public works are way more than, you know.
Right.
So
You
there's a scale. If you have this number, I mean, it's going to be based on your payroll number.
Right, but then we have the experience factor, which is based on your total claims versus total employees and all of that.
Yeah, you can.
So,
push
you know,
your
if their experience
experience
factor is like a
modification
0.85
around.
and ours is a 1.1,
Right.
then, you know, there's 10 grand right there. So those are kind of where we are with those things, and I'll certainly keep you informed, and I hope to be able to provide you numbers soon. Actually, tomorrow night at our regular commissioners meeting, I'm going to be asking the commissioners for input on that again, because I'm like, hey, you know, August is next week, and we need to be getting back to you, to Hale's location about ambulance, you know, and, you know, what we're looking at for next year.
Have you started to do some budget numbers?
Well, I need guidance from the commissioners to do that, because I need to
That
know,
includes
are we
staffing.
looking at additional staff
Staffing.
next year?
Which is the biggest
You know,
number.
I mean, if we're not looking, if it's a status quo budget, I can whip that thing up in a couple hours. You know, all I need to do is look at the individual line items that, you know, like the 111% increase from Eversource, you know, things like that, so.
Well, there's still gonna be an increase because of gasoline and oil and heating and all the other
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Even if there is no staffing change.
So, right, but those things are easy to do. It's the staffing that takes the time, so.
What's your proposal on staffing?
I need on that because, I mean, if you really want to pull the trigger on making the conversion to being a career style department with call staff as well, then you need to hire 3 more people. Now, there's another whole problem with this. There is no one to hire. So,
Is it true that the state has openings for 154 full-time
I
firefighters?
believe that's the number. They ran 4 CPAT tests, didn't fill the 4 of them. All of those people are hired, and everybody's desperate. In fact, my newest hire, Dairy Fire, just called yesterday trying to hire them away.
Oh.
So they're literally calling people employed by other fire departments trying to steal them away. City of Coney is down 7 firefighters right now. So
So if you
they
think
only
it's
run 9 on a shift.
right, and if
you
you
know.
think it's expensive to hire 3 new, which is probably to the tune of $300,000 annually,
Yeah.
then try paying time and a half for a 24-hour shift because you're 7 people down.
If the other
Well-
people aren't making it,
And
then
you're
you have
burning-
to up them.
So
because-
burnout's my bigger concern.
And you're burning
right?
people out. They'll leave with all these openings. They'll leave and go to a department where they're guaranteed less. So usually the guys want a little bit
I've
overtime.
got 2
but-
young guys who are picking up a lot of open shifts right now. So the way our schedule is built, we actually have 8 shifts a week that are normally covered by either call or per diem employees. I don't have any per diem employees anymore. The other ambulance services around us are now paying $5 an hour more than we pay. So they stole all my per diem people away, and now I'm covering shifts with overtime every single week. And my big concern is burning these guys out so they leave. You know, I've got a brand new kid that he's only been on the career guy that's only been on a few months now, and he's consistently working 60+ hours a week for me. So
Are you on a 24-hour, 48-hour shift?
yeah, so we have a group of different shifts. We have 3 people that are on 24/48s with the Kelly Day, and then we have 2 people that are on 12-hour rotating days, and then the other holes in the schedule are filled by call and per diem staff. So.
That must be fun to schedule.
I mean,
You haven't ever known any different.
it is what it is, as they say. So yeah, so I'm not even convinced that if we did try to hire 3 additional career staff, we could find them. And, I haven't had that conversation with my commissioners yet to see, will they authorize 1? And then what do I do with that in my schedule to make it helpful? But, so, again, not to give you doom and gloom, we're just, like many other people, we are struggling to get done what needs to get done. We did hire an assistant chief this year, and he's just started. He's been on less than a month now. His primary responsibility is going to be administrative and inspections. As through COVID, of course, we, like everything else, fell way behind on inspections because we couldn't go inspect these properties. And so now it will take. Usually it's multiple trips to get caught up when you haven't inspected somebody for 3 years. So there's going to be a lot of work to do there. And, I need the administrative support so that when I take time off, all of the work doesn't just sit there and wait for me to come back. So.
Wow, I'm just raring to go now. Really, right in my day. So we're gonna negotiate with you and then hope that sticks.
Yeah, we'll see how quickly we can get that answer. Lawyers, so we might get depends for an answer. So that'd
We
be
could
very
put something
helpful.
on the warrant next year, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've heard rumor that even if the commissioners don't put something forward, that there'll be a petition article to dissolve the village district.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, and I gotta tell you,
If there isn't a run out on that warrant, that's scary, potentially.
in my discussions with staff and what I bring back to my commissioners, is this, to make this functional, it needs to be a coordinated effort with the town, not the village district just shutting the lights off.
Right.
we need to say, okay, here's the date it's going to happen by. So great example. The town of Conway doesn't have the correct warrant articles to have a fire department.
Oh, boy.
So if we're going to go to the town, I need to craft the warrant articles on behalf of the town and let them get them on the warrant.
Is that from when they recodified RSA 153? There's only like 3 ways they can organize.
Yeah, so there's 5 ways you can organize a fire department. You have to pick one. The voters have to pick one of those 5 ways. So we have to write the warrant article to do that. There's another warrant article you need to authorize the fire department to respond mutual aid outside your boundaries. And then there's a third article that will have to be written as well. There's some administrative procedures that would have to be discussed. There's ambulance billing. It can take 8 months to get permission to bill Medicare to have them rob you blind. And I'll say that, I have no problem saying that on camera, the 2 biggest crooks in the insurance industry are the state and federal government. So,
I did all the ambulance billing in Wakefield.
you're well aware that, we bill $1,000 for an ambulance call. The federal government says it's worth $500, pays you $400 and says you can't have the rest. It's worse with the state and Medicaid. We bill $1,000 for an ambulance call. They say that call is worth $180 and you can't have the rest. So that's why in those numbers you see in Albany in 2021, we billed out $77,957.90 and received $27,294.26. Or 35% of what we billed. Imagine if we could collect all of that money and how much less we'd have to ask the town for.
Never mind, a lot of it isn't even Albany residents, it's down in Canada.
Yep, it's right about 50-50. Albany residents versus tourists in Albany. It was 33 of the transported people were Albany residents, 31 were not last year. So.
Interesting.
And they keep trying to do things like they use the term on TV, surprise billing. So let's say you have Anthem, because I will also throw Anthem under the bus every chance I get. I have Anthem. They're the largest insurer in New Hampshire and New England, and let's say we bill them $1,000. You have Anthem insurance, and you think that ambulance is covered. They'll pay us $500 and tell us send the other half to the patient. And then they go to Maggie Hassan and the state legislature and they say, look, they're surprise billing these poor people. You shouldn't let them do that. To which every time this comes up, I put on my Class A uniform and I go to Concord and I go testify and I tell them, here's the answer. Tell Anthem to pay our bill. I'm like,
Name medicals.
my healthcare plan for my family costs $30,000 a year. You can pay the bill.
Absolutely. Come November, we can't go to the medical anymore.
Right. Which all of us with Anthem are going to have to keep in mind if we have something come up and they want to transfer us. We'll have to be our own advocates. Like, no. You're going to have to send me south, not east. So.
Awful.
So is there anything else any other questions I can answer for you?
I don't know if we
Anything
can
else I
get
can
any
tell you
lower, Steve.
Yeah, honestly.
No, I'd like to
Just say
see what they come back and what they have for us.
now? Yeah, I know numbers are important, and I'm sorry we're a little behind on getting that this year, but there's still plenty of time before.
We don't have a budget committee, so we don't have the constraints on
No.
budgets that you
No.
Conway does, but if you keep us in the loop so
See,
that we can.
There's an advantage to staying in Conway Village versus going to the town. We don't report to the budget committee either.
Right. Why? Oh, City Conway comes in.
So because we always say the 3 most valuable lots that Conway Village Fire District has within their jurisdiction are the ones in Albany. So because our village district boundaries cross the town line, we don't have to report to the town of Conway Budget Committee. Whereas the 3 districts that are wholly within the town of Conway do. So
You're welcome.
it's good news.
And then I guess we just need to keep Steve up to date on as far as the update on that hazard mitigation.
I usually get the schedule right from June, but I haven't seen one recently. So
So I thought I
And these
sent
should
you,
be Zoom
I
meetings.
thought I sent you an email.
I got one a while ago,
Okay.
but I didn't
So
think
maybe
I
it
had
was-
this scheduled.
Maybe it was Sheriff Shardy. I scheduled one for, I believe it's September 7th and one for September 20th. I believe the September 7th one is an evening and the September 20th is a morning. I'm trying to,
Allow people to participate.
yeah, and people don't have to, obviously you're a busy guy. You don't have to come to every single meeting. But obviously, because you're a very important part of our hazard mitigation, we'd like you to.
And June knows me. She knows what I'm going to say already.
Yeah.
Wildland urban interface. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some work to do on our mitigation plan because I was told by HEB that we have the only mitigation plan they've ever seen that didn't include improvements to bridges that are on the red list because
We
of
only have
it
two.
had, well, when the state made some of this money available, this ARPA money available, if our bridge had been in that hazard mitigation plan, that would have been enough to allow them to apply for the grant money. But he said, Chris Fortier said, it's one of the only ones because I said it to him. I said, where would I look for it? Because I looked through the whole plan. I didn't see it under the hazard anywhere. And he went through it and he said, this is the only mitigation plan I've ever seen that doesn't list out the red listed bridge. So I think I'm going to take his email and provide that to June so that we can roll
Yeah,
that
make
into
sure we get that.
roll that into the new one. And the emergency operations plan too, because there's mitigation in there as well. So when we redo that next year, the year after, I think we'll double down on red listed bridges.
Just a quick note on emergency operations. I've been for the last 3 or 4 months trying to work out with Red Cross and the school district using the middle school gym as a regional shelter. And if we can get that to fruition, it would make it so you guys wouldn't have to have an independent shelter plan like you do right now. That Albany residents could simply go there if they needed to. So everybody thinks it's a good idea. It's a question of, it really comes down to the way the paperwork works out. In a declared disaster, the town of Conway ends up having to foot the bill for the shelter and then go after FEMA for 75%, leaving the town on the hook for 25% of those costs. And the town of Conway is going to say no to that if it's open to other than Conway residents. So I've been going back and forth. The upside, the new guy from Red Cross that's in charge of disaster management for our region is an old friend of mine. I've worked with him 30 years ago, and we know each other. So we were able to have good conversations about stuff like that. And he's trying to work that out on his end so that we don't have that problem, and then we can move forward and stuff.
That'd be awesome. We're kind of small to go alone in sheltering.
It's silly. I mean, none of the towns around us should be doing that, which should be the regional shelter. And Red Cross can't handle 7 shelters in Carroll County either.
Are you the pod? Conway's got to be the pod for this area, right?
Yeah, so yes, but what we found back in H1N1 is we can set up a pod just about anywhere. And you give me 2 hours a morning and I can set up an effective pod right over here. So pods are easy.
Well, there's always monkeypox.
Could always be worse, right?
COVID, monkeypox, whatever.
Gonna get any lower until he.
I don't have anything further.
Well,
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for coming.
keeping
No
us
problem.
updated.
purely preliminary.
Well, I'll get with my commissioners and try to work out some preliminary stuff and get back to you as quick as I can. So.
Yes, let's ease us into that number because
Yeah.
it's going to be shocking.
Got the digest.
Yeah.
I need a minute.
Yeah. Well,
We're going to need a minute when we see that number.
I don't know how Eaton gets away with it as well as they do, but I mean, I do. It takes half an hour to get an ambulance to Eaton.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So.
Which doesn't seem like a long time when you're in a rural area until you're the one having the heart attack.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then 5 minutes is 3 hours. And people love living where we live, but They don't realize
That's
there's
how even
consequences.
15 minutes.
Right,
seems like
and
half
you know,
hour.
our response time to residences in Albany is actually very good.
Mhm.
You know, the long response times in Albany are places like Sugar
Yeah, but they're
Crossing
never gonna-
Campground, Passaconaway Campground.
But they're never gonna be as good as they are on TV. And that's where people get that.
That is true.
But on 911,
I
you
blame-
get, they're there in 3.5 minutes.
I blame William Shatner.
It is.
You remember that TV show
Yeah.
back in the, was that the 80s or the early
Yeah, yeah.
90s?
That's
Rescue
the
Man.
911. Yeah, that was good.
I remember the older one, ER.
Emergency.
Yeah, emergency, that's the one.
That's like one of those fun shows to watch. They reenact everything. and
Yeah, yeah.
Everything takes 10 minutes.
Right, and everybody lives.
And everybody that gets CPR
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
What's the actual statistic in CPR? Because
Oh.
you're dead.
Nationally speaking, it's 17% survival rate. So
So not so good.
ours is a little higher than that actually, but
Well, it's great if you're one of the 17%.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If you're one of the 83 that it didn't work
No.
out. But then again, you gotta remember, you're dead.
No.
cool. Well, I'm happy to come visit you guys
Yeah.
anytime, answer any
Yeah.
questions you have, and if you
Thank
think
you.
of something, feel free to shoot me an email or Kathy always knows where to find me. So she hears me driving by.
Through town hall.
She hears me driving by town hall 10 times a day.
Oh
So
my God. Non-stop.
Well, thanks for your time.
we have whole days where we literally get nothing done because all we do is go back to back to back to back.
That is getting something.
Right. So, but when you're the chief, you know, I have other responsibilities to get done.
Right.
You know,
Well, how dare you commit yourself to anything?
I tell you, I
Because
get these
You
people.
must have got a lot done today because it didn't seem busy today.
Right, except I was at town hall first thing in the morning. That took a while.
Talking to the new town manager.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you very much.
All right, is there anything new under old business?
No.
Okay. Other business, the planning board will meet, next meeting's August 8th at 6:30 PM. Nothing more on the broadband committee?
Nope.
Does anybody have anything else?
I don't.
I met one of the farms that operate out of the town forest. And it made me curious about the Conservation Commission. Are they fully staffed? I mean, I don't even know who's on. I know Rob
We
kind of
could,
headed it up.
Maybe reach out to Sean.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if Sean could make it into a meeting and just give us an update.
yeah, I mean, I might be interested in joining if there's an opening. Or do we have a selectmen's?
It changed.
Yeah.
It changed years ago. Kathy was the last actual selectman serving.
And she's
But
still
she's
on
still
that
on.
one.
Rob got on too. Rob Naylor served for a
did?
little while because he had been on, he was very interested when he got,
Well, that's the
Elected,
farmer I
yeah.
talked to. He dealt with Rob, and since Rob, he said there's really, the communication's falling off and things are just
Yeah,
not the same, so I'm kind of curious about it. I didn't know, Court's still
Court's
on there?
still secretary?
Court's the secretary and Kevin Tilton is the chairman. I
Oh,
can provide
okay.
you with their email
Yeah,
Yeah, I
address.
wouldn't mind.
They have a meeting every month if you
I would
want to
like
go and
Yeah,
check it
Tuesday
out.
nights or something.
something I'd be interested in, maybe
Is it
joining
the
and
second
helping out.
Tuesday of the month or the first Tuesday of the month? I can't remember.
I think it's the first because the school board's the second or something
Yeah.
like that.
But they meet every month
Yeah.
and,
If you want-
and I'll give
send
you
it
their
out.
email addresses if you
Yeah.
want to reach out to
Okay.
them and
Thank you.
Maybe see how Rob is too.
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to Court, I just, when do you ever get up there to,
You know,
you know?
when you do, they're closed.
Yeah. Uh-oh,
Anything?
something to say.
Anything else?
I don't
I have
have
nothing
anything
else.
to add.
We're ready to end it. We're going on to correspondence. Review and discuss a letter from New Hampshire Lottery regarding recent changes to Keno 603, which is basically allowing any establishment that sells lottery tickets to also sell Keno. Review and discuss a letter from Charter Communications regarding upcoming changes. It's the typical every month that they're removing channels and they're gonna charge us more.
Yes.
Review and discuss email from North Country Council regarding requesting the town's participation in an online solid waste survey.
so I didn't know if you guys, one of you would like to take the lead on this, on answering this, because I don't know anything about solid waste in Albany. But if you want me to,
If you
I
want,
will take a look, and if I have more questions, I'll reach out to you guys.
I really
if I have more questions, I'll reach out to you guys.
don't have time, but if you can't, then forward it to me and I'll,
Yeah, if it's opinions about stuff,
I think it's opinion.
is it opinion?
I mean, I'll go online and take a look at it.
If you can't, just forward it to me.
But yeah, if it's more of a resident thing, then
I can,
probably shouldn't be the person.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
live
yeah.
here, and
I mean, is it just one person required to
I
do
think-
the survey?
I think they're reaching
Wanna do it?
out.
I mean, I don't care if it's, yeah, I mean,
I don't even
I'm
use
private
our
septic.
solid waste, so I-
I'm private septic, so I mean, if that makes a
No,
difference.
solid waste.
No, it's not.
So it doesn't
It's-
matter.
It's
Trash.
Trash?
Trash.
Yeah,
Doesn't go in
it's
the
trash.
dump.
I just throw mine in the woods. Just kidding, just kidding. But yeah,
there is a tree hugger somewhere.
oh my god, I'm a tree
I
hugger.
got a 55-gallon bucket
I-
barrel in my backyard.
I'll take the survey. I'll
Okay.
take the survey now that I know what it means exactly.
There you go.
Alright,
That's your
Yay.
first.
so the link is on the agenda that I sent you, so.
Okay, perfect. Is that due at certain date,
No, there's
time?
I think they gave us a deadline, did they? No, and it's about municipalities' interest in exploring shared services. So,
We already share.
I mean,
Well, I'd like to take the solid waste.
Yeah, it's not a live link on the document you sent, but I'll get to it. It's fine.
we already are interested in sharing
I'll take,
services.
I'll take it.
Contract sheriff, contract fire, contract
Everything's
rec,
contracts,
contract.
you know.
So, I mean, maybe the answer is just yes, yes, yes. We'd love
Yeah.
to talk to anybody about anything, but
Got it.
Let's see.
anything that saves money and
Yeah.
lets us be more ecologically responsible, environmentally responsible.
Review and discuss letter from DRA regarding a requirement to provide notice of any audit required by RSA 21-J:19 or 21-J:20, as DRA is now authorized to collect fines.
So basically, we have always had to do audits or explain, or we can elect an auditor. Ooh, those are scary.
Very scary.
We had one of those. And we're required by law to provide our audit results to DRA, which I have always done. This just is apparently there's towns or counties out there that aren't doing it. Now, I will say that their time constraint is, I think, March 31st. There's no
that's-
way that 234 towns and cities in
way.
New Hampshire can get an audit done by March. A couple probably do, but there's 5 audit firms and 234 towns and cities. The math doesn't work out. So this is a $250 a day fine for each day in non-compliance. So I think what we do is when we schedule
Didn't
the
it
thing.
say that you could show the contract in a
Right.
timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we get our field work done in March of every year, and then it's done around May, and we get the final one. I just got it, I think, last week. So in July, and then I provide it. So I think as long as you have a plan, they're fine with that.
Yes.
It's the towns that
That are not.
oopsie, we didn't
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know that we could get fined,
Okay.
and that's all I had.
Number 9, public comment.
Yes.
A couple of things. First, I just want to let you know that I found somebody on Multi Drive Park where he or she should not have been parked. I left them a little note on the windshield saying that they're going to get a fine.
Yep.
I haven't seen it back.
Nice.
Gotta get up there.
Constable Dorothy.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was the bench that we got. First, I'd like to make sure that it's all right for me to write about what happened and all the things like that. Additionally, I was in touch with the people at the Lions Club, and with regard to a new bench, I know that they said that it would take a while, and they also mentioned that every bench uses about 500 pounds of plastic. it would be helpful, in my opinion, if the town of Albany had people coming and bringing and depositing their plastic.
Mhm.
Now, I got in touch with Kelly about that, and I rethought that a minute, and I said, first, you don't want people constantly coming in and out here. But we could put a bin outside.
Mhm.
And as we came in, I showed it to Spafford. And that way, if the people from the club wish to give us a bin, we could have it outside in a place where it would not be in direct traffic,
Yeah.
and people could come in 24/7 and deposit what they had.
Think about the
Yeah.
plows too, and
And it's not gonna be terribly heavy. I mean, it's only soft
I've already
plastics.
made arrangements. You talked about this last week
Yeah.
at the presentation. I've already talked to the people. They've ordered the bin.
Yeah, it's
For
good.
town hall, it needs a poster over it saying what's allowed. There's no place to put that outside.
No.
Again, we have to
Plows.
move it during plow season.
Oh,
I've
right.
already talked to her. She's ordered the bin and it should be here, the end of next week.
So you can't put it under the awning
all the
over,
snow falls off.
I
The
don't know.
snow bankings go higher than the windows
And if
sometimes.
that leaks or gets wet, then all that material is
So how are
scrapped,
they gonna get to it
because it's,
to get the
So
plastic
that was
out?
work, huh?
I mean, I thought
It's-
outdoors would be good because
Yeah.
it'd be easy to
I agree,
access
in the
and
summertime.
all the time. Yeah, maybe in the summertime, but can you keep it outside in the summertime? Would it be too cumbersome to
I
put
don't
in
know.
and out or?
they have a receptacle.
Yeah.
And they ordered one, and it might be a cardboard barrel. I
Right,
mean, I don't know what
exactly.
it is, so.
Well, I guess see when it gets here. And then when it gets here, we can see if it would be feasible to keep it outside.
Where are we gonna
so-
put the poster? Because they were adamant that it has to have a poster over of what's allowed,
Over it or
because
it's gonna be on it?
I don't know what the size is.
Yeah.
I mean,
We'll just, I guess, wait till we get it. And then see what it looks like.
So if I put something about it in the column, in the newspaper, I have to say that we will get one, but we're not sure at this moment where it will be
Or
placed.
just say, you'll be able to drop it at town hall without saying anything, and then we can clarify when it comes in.
Yes, I will do that. That was so it's all right if I can tell them to.
That was your 3 cents.
That's all it's about.
Non-public session, anything
Yeah.
today? Nothing. And next meeting is August 10th at 5:30. And if there is nothing else, I will make a motion to adjourn at 6:32.
Second.
Second it all today.
Yeah, that one too.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Throw my trash in there.